Hi, my name is Dawn Holder. I am here to share my testimony and what God is doing in my life. In August of 1974, I was 7 months pregnant with my firstborn son when I entered the life of prostitution. When my son was about a year old, someone else took care of him while I was out prostituting. Until he was 4 years old, he lived with someone else and then came back to live with me. When he came back to live with me, I still had pimps in my life as I was still basically prostituting. In 1980, I gave birth to a daughter. When she was 3 months old, my son was hit by a car and killed. When my son was killed, a neighbor started taking me to church. I got away from that life for a while and got a job working in a sewing factory on George Street. In 1982, I met a man that Satan used to get me back into the life of prostituting. I lived this life with that man for many years, over 13 years. I went through a lot of abuse by him mentally, emotionally, physically, and sexually. I was not in a relationship with my family members. They had separated themselves from me. But my mother prayed for me for many years. Although I was still going through abuse from the man I was living with, I was able to get a job at a nursing home. Around 1994, I finally got away from him. I worked at the nursing home for over 15 years. When I was working there, I was still drinking a lot of alcohol and taking pills. I used to carry my bottle of alcohol with me wherever I went. In 1997, I met a man that worked at the nursing home who was a recovering addict. Soon after I met him, the Lord took away all the desire for drugs and alcohol, and I tried to help him in his recovery. We had my youngest daughter in 1998. However, when I was less than 6 months pregnant, he went back into doing drugs. This separated me from him. When I was 6 months pregnant, he was arrested for drugs and rape. While he was in prison, he got in contact with me. I would take my daughter to see him in jail and started a relationship back up with him. We got married while he was in jail in 1999. My daughter was around 6 months old. My new husband was still in jail, so I came through being a single mom with a lot of struggles. After about 10 years, I divorced him. When my daughter was 2 or 3 years old, God led me to a next door neighbor who went to Grace Fellowship. At Grace Fellowship, I met Pastor Larry Katz and Jackie Katz. Weeks later, I started coming regularly, and Jackie, rest in peace, led me into salvation prayer. I began taking classes at Grace Fellowship. I loved Jackie and Larry. After Pastor Katz retired, I was here a short time and then left Grace Fellowship and was not following the Lord for many years. I did go to a couple of churches, but just did not feel like I was at home. Years later, I moved back to West York. I felt the Lord tugging at my heart to come back to Him and go back to church. I was praying and asking the Lord where He wanted to lead me. I knew Grace Fellowship had changed the name and found out that it is Genesis now. I went online to watch the live stream and seeing that Pastor Bob is now the pastor, my heart leaped. I knew him from Grace Fellowship. I continued to watch the live stream for a few weeks, and finally I mustered the courage to go. As soon as I walked in the door, I was so joyful and peaceful. Before returning to Genesis, I was reunited with my older daughter. We did not have a good relationship for years, but we got back in contact. God blessed me with her back in my life and blessed me with 2 grandchildren. My youngest daughter is doing amazing things. I pray for both of my daughters to come to the Lord. Since I came back to Genesis, I can look back at when it was Grace Fellowship, and I can see now how God has worked in me. He has encouraged me to give and serve. I have a desire to go on the Dominican Republic ministry trip, which I am working on doing right now. I also have a heart's desire to help women in prostitution and sex trafficking. I am in contact with Sparrow Place and InspireLove.org and Project Girl with Joyce Meyer Ministries. I am so excited to see how God is using me and what He is doing in my life. Praise, honor, and glory to God.